Good evening. How are you all? It's Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m., which means you are on live on the Spirituality Show with the Spiritual Events Directory and myself, Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher. So it's great to have you all on here. I'm going to give you all a moment to jump on because I know a couple of you see the notification flick up on your computers, and so we'll just see and give you all a chance to jump on board. How's everyone's evening been anyway? I myself have just returned from an amazing few days of R&R on the Gold Coast, which has been fantastic. So it's been a long time coming. I got to spend a bit of time with my BFF and have a bit of a girls' weekend. And then I stayed on for an extra couple of days to get some work done because let's face it, in these hectic, busy world, sometimes you just need to get away from your kids so that you can lock yourself up and just work. So I had a beautiful place that was just overlooking the back canals of Surfers Paradise and was able to sit down and just smash out some amazing, amazing, amazing stuff that I've been wanting to do for ages. So I'm very excited to talk to you guys about that tonight and let you know what's happening. So hello, as you all come on. How are you, Jenny? Hey, Janelle. I can see Patricia's come on as well. Hey there, beautiful Patricia. It's great to see you guys all with me tonight. As I just mentioned, I've just come back from the coast. I actually only just got back today. So I apologise I didn't send out the reminder to jump on, but you guys have all found me anyway, which is great. It's good to see that I'm coming up as a regular thing that we get to connect together on Wednesday evenings because I truly love it. I absolutely love catching up and seeing what you guys are all up to, how you've been for the week. So as mentioned, you're on live with Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher, and I am obviously Belinda Hayes. So I do the spirituality show on everything science, energy, healing, crystals, and more. And tonight I really wanted to share with you guys, because I've done a few lives now and you guys have started to get to know me from what I can share with you all. You've started to get to understand my knowledge and what it is that I can pass on to help enrich other people's lives with happiness, because that's my ultimate mission and my ultimate purpose and why I'm here and why I do what I do. So I thought it was about time that I shared with you my story, or at least shared some of that story with you. And I've entitled today's presentation Own Your Story, and it's extremely potent, those words, when I say those, and I wanted to explain what they meant and talk to you about an upcoming conference that I'm actually running with my company Soul Events in February next year, where I've entitled that conference the Soul Stories Conference, Own Your Story. And I've got 10 amazing presenters coming along over 2 days. It's being held on the Gold Coast, and it's at SeaWorld Resort, which is extremely exciting because just that venue alone is absolutely amazing. And these 10 presenters are all people that have incredible stories. They're just real people though. They're real life people with real life stories, and they're coming along to share their story. But more than that, they're actually coming along to share the story of where they were and the techniques and the things that they did to take ownership of their story and turn their life around. And of course, the reason these 10 people and presenters have been selected is for the amazing, incredible service, or what they're now doing in service with that story, or as a result of their own story, and the way they've made change in their lives and so many other people's lives as well. So that's going to be an absolutely phenomenal event. So if you have a look on the description of this feed, you'll see I've put a link up there for you guys. It's called the Soul Stories Conference with Soul Events, and I'd love you guys to go and have a look at it. In actual fact, I'm going to, even as we speak, pop this up in the comments for you. I'll just change it from, so you know it's come from me. There we go. Look at me being all tech savvy, doing two things at once, hey? That's the link there to the conference that I'm running in February. And the reason I bring that up is just so that you guys, after we've talked today, can go and check that out. Because what I'm actually doing is I've been doing some market research recently, and I found out that when somebody is in that part of their life, when they're still living their story, when they are still a victim of their story, it's often very hard for them to put their hand up and say they need help, or it's often hard for them to know which steps to take. And, attending a conference like this, for example, is one of those steps that they can take. But so often they just can't see outside of where they are to know that these support networks exist. And so I've been reaching out to all of the families and the friends and the support workers and the support carers of people that are sitting in a place or such as that is still owning them, that is still claiming them, and actually been offering and letting them know about this event so that they can actually purchase a ticket for that friend or that family or that loved one as a way to support and encourage them. Because I know with my own short story that I'm going to share shortly for you, there were so many times since that I've spoken with my family that they said, we just didn't know what we could do for you. We didn't know where to start. And I realized that there's so many times that family members and loved ones are trying to do something for us and often don't know kind of where to start, where to go, how can I help? And so what we're doing is we are actually offering to anybody that wants to purchase a ticket for their loved one that is in need, and also to come along themselves so they can be part of that journey of support with them. If you were to buy your tickets and enter a special code and the word is just support, then you'll get $50 off those tickets as well. So that's a special exclusive that we are offering, and I wanted to offer it, of course, to all you wonderful people tonight as well. So jump on and have a look at that and use that special code support to grab some money off your tickets if you purchase 2 or more tickets. But look, we'll talk about that a bit more later, because what I really, as I mentioned, wanted to do is talk about my story. So you guys have gotten to know me, and certainly, I've been sharing in a lot of this wonderful knowledge. And so I want to share a little bit of my story so that you can start to connect on a much, much deeper level, because it is really important. A lot of the times when you're working with a spiritual teacher, you want to know that they are coming from a place that they understand where you're at. And so for me, my story's really been one about, and I'm just going to stop there because I can see Nigel's put up a beautiful comment, that the awareness that's come from owning his story, which is helping him on his healing journey. And thank you for sharing that, Nigel, because you're absolutely right. There is so much power, when in owning your story. And that doesn't necessarily, they're very different things. It doesn't mean forgiveness. It doesn't mean that you are instantly healed when you own your story. Taking ownership of who you are as a result of everything that has occurred to you, and some of that can be quite traumatic, is the very first step to empowerment. It's the first step to creating this version of an inspired sense of self. And when we can actually pause and stop and take a moment and go, you know what? I need to step out of that mentality that I'm a victim, and I need to own that this is who I am. I am a product of my past. And everything that has happened, whether for a reason or otherwise, depending on your beliefs, but everything that has happened has happened. I read this beautiful meme the other day, and I shared it in my Souls Collective group. If you're not a member of that group, jump on and join me in there. But it said, we cannot suffer the past or the present or the future, because neither of those two things exist. Only thing that exists is right now in the present. When we are suffering from something in the past, then all we're doing is actually suffering a memory. And when we're suffering the future, all we're actually suffering is our imagination. And I love that. We cannot suffer the past or the future. All we're suffering is our memory or in our imagination. The only thing that's truly exists as a reality for us is this exact present moment now. And when we can really grasp that, and when we can really see, then we can go, okay, you know what? All this stuff that I'm holding is actually a memory. All this stuff, because it's in the past. And so taking ownership of that and saying, but all that stuff that has happened, all those memories I have that invoke feelings and emotions, make me who I am today. I wouldn't be who I am today without it. And so that is the first grasp. That is that taking ownership of your story. And the most miraculous, amazing thing happens when you reach that point. And for me, working with as many clients as I've worked with, I have seen time and time again, you can almost pinpoint the moment somebody owns their story. It is so powerful. It really, really is powerful. For me, I talk about my story as being a story of numbers. And the reason I do that is because this is how I kind of categorize or categorize would be the best way to put that. I was going to say kind of correlate my life, and certainly my memories, because we're going to, we're talking about the past, but my memories of my past. When I was 10 years old, I was sexually molested by my maternal grandfather. I had years of sexual abuse from him, but it started at the age of 10. And so for me, 10, is the number in my life that a lot of my trauma and childhood trauma first began. And at that age, it wasn't something that I understood, and it wasn't something that I was doing wrong. It was just something that was happening to me at that time. And as my life continued to progress, those different ages became really pivotal to me. So 14 is my next number when I categorize my story. And when I've talked about this in one of my ghost stories, or spirit stories, as we've mentioned in a previous live. But I was 14 years old when I was pre-warned by spirit that something was going to happen. And I was attacked in a local park by a gang of girls. And I was beaten up quite severely and spent some time recovering from that. Although it was a significant moment at the time, this culmination of numbers in my life has led me to where my story is now. So 16 was the next age for me, or the next number in my story, when I say it's a story of numbers. And I was 16 years old. I was in year 12 in high school when my home was broken into in the middle of the night, and the intruder hid under my bed and waited for me to fall asleep that night before attacking me. My entire family were actually home at that time, believe it or not, all asleep in their beds. And my father was able to hear some commotion going on. It turns out I had actually knocked my elbow on the wall, and it was enough to wake him. But that was a pretty significant event that occurred for me, as you can imagine, at the age of 16. So from the age of 10 to 14 to 16, I continue on in my life until I'm 24. And by now I have met a man and I've married him, and we lose our first child. So I've gone from experiencing sexual assault, physical assault on two different levels at two different ages, to now experiencing grief. All of these incredible emotions and significant traumatic events that have occurred in my life. From the age of 24, at 26 is when I found my mother, who had been in the throes of a separation and divorce with my father, having just attempted suicide. And I ended up caring for her for a number of years, 3 years in fact, until her health improved enough. But, that memory and that traumatic moment for me of finding her was certainly plays out in my story and my story of numbers. At the age of 28, I gave birth to my first child. And unfortunately, I spiraled into severe postnatal depression. Of course, at the time, I didn't recognize that, but it was certainly something that through my healing journey, I've been able to go back and identify how much of that played a big part in my life at the time. At 31, my husband and I separated after the birth of our second child. And not long after, I actually found a new man in my life. I thought it was love, and I walked straight into domestic violence. Unfortunately, I lived that hell for the next 3 years, and at the age of 33, I attempted to take my own life. So when I look at that cumulative effect of that trauma, when I look at that accumulation of trauma and despair of my life from the age of 10 to the age of 33, I can actually see that each of those things individually were significant enough moments of trauma, but it's not until I reach the point of 33 that cumulative effect occurs, and I get to a point where it overwhelms me and it's too much. What actually happened, and in that moment, I know I mention it very blasé, and I don't mean to be blasé about it, because to me, I am healed. I have spent the last 4 years on the most miraculous healing journey, or just a bit longer. And when I can talk about my story, I always say when you can share your story without the emotion behind it, then you are healed. And the way I know that is because when I talk about these moments in my life, I'm talking about as if they've happened to a third person. They've happened to that Belinda, not this one. And that's truly powerful. That's that moment of ownership of my story. I can turn around and go, you know what? That is my story. That is who I am. I can tell you about it because I'm not her anymore. I can tell you about it because I'm the reality and the presence of me right now. I'm not living in that memory, and I'm not worrying or some imaginary thing that is not yet to occur, or may not ever occur. And so that moment when we step into our story and we take ownership of it, this transformative effect occurs that allows our soul to just step back into the power of the present and to be who we are. And I started seeing this real gratitude in every moment I had lived, this gratitude in the encounters, and I'm not saying I'm thankful they happened, but what I'm grateful for is the ripple effects of what came after that. For example, each of those moments caused tremendous support networks around me when and how they were needed. Each of those moments created resilience in me, and a level of resilience that was beyond a lot of my friends at the time, for example. And I've used that resilience as I've gone through my life, and it's served me so wonderfully and so well. I look at my relationship with my first child, the one when I was in the throes of postnatal depression. And I am grateful for understanding that I don't need to hold this mummy's guilt, because that's not what it was. That's not what was happening. It's not that I didn't know how to be a mum. It's that I had so much else chemically going on at the time. And so when we can start to actually stand there and evaluate as if it's a separate person, it's a third person, and own your story and go, yes, that happened to me, but I don't allow myself to hold on to the energy of that anymore. Yes, that happened to me, but it doesn't need to be who I am now. Then we can really start to transform and change. And that's what I've done. That is where I have now found myself in this amazing space. I have spent years and years now in the realm of spirituality. And more so for me, it's been a search of learned information. As you'd know, if you've watched any of my previous lives, whenever I share anything with you, I've got the content behind it, because I've been so interested in the why and the how, and I've gone out searching and looking for that. And, for me, it was about finding the most incredible resources I could find to help me through that, because that is who I am. I'm a learned person, and that's what I like. That's how I process and understand things. And from there, being able to connect to some incredible, amazing mentors in my life. Nigel's saying they're learning to let go of anchors of the past. You're dead right. It's absolutely, when the past is a memory, it's not a reality. It's actually not even when we talk about the past, we're actually only talking about your version of that memory. They always say there's 3 versions to any one event, especially if there were 2 people involved. There's their version, your version, and probably the actual version. We have seen many, again, I'm back in science, there's been so many experiments that have been done that have shown that we only see what we actually want to see. And, I'm trying to think off the top of my head when it was done. I can't recall the date, but there were some social experiments done where they had people sitting in imagine like your local mall. And they had a person dressed in a gorilla suit walk through the middle of everybody in the mall. And then afterwards they were interviewing the people and saying, what did you see and what was going on? And they were telling them all this stuff. And, it was something like only 10% of them actually saw the gorilla, saw this guy in a gorilla suit, because they only saw what they wanted to see. It was so out of place in a mall that they didn't perceive this gorilla to even be there, even though it was right in front of them the entire time. And it's important, when we are sitting here in our memories of our past, and as Nigel's talked about, the anchors of our past, when we're sitting there in those, we are actually just holding on to a memory of them, which is only our perception of that memory. And we can take that perception and shift it. we can actually turn it and change it. And so now when I look at it, and this is, this comes with advanced healing, but it is absolutely 100% possible. I want to go back to that little 10-year-old girl who was first sexually assaulted by her grandfather. When I look at that situation, I can look at it from my grandfather's point of view. I can look at it from my grandmother's point of view. I can look at it from my mother's point of view. And I can see how everything played out at that time the way it did without it being anybody's fault. Was my grandfather mentally ill? Was, what makes somebody like that do something? Was my grandmother aware that it was going on at the time? Was my mother, all these sorts of things. And, even going down and we look at the intruder that broke into my home at the age of 16 and how that all played out. And I've often sat there and thought, why? You can go into this victim mentality of why me? Why did it happen to me? Why did he choose me? But at the end of the day, if that had not happened, then there's so many things after that I would never have done. I, for example, after that incident, I was 16 years old, I began wetting the bed. I began becoming so anxious of going to bed of a night time. I refused to ever be out. For years, I couldn't sleep on a bed that was raised off the floor for fear that there was somebody under it. All completely understandable reactions to that level of trauma that's been, that has occurred to me. But what I was able to do was actually process that and say, hang on a minute, who was this guy? Where, was it something about me that made this attack occur? This anxiety that I'm feeling, there's only one way to actually get over that, and that's to dive headlong into it. Let's embrace it. And, that led to me in 2007 traveling the world. And I know that seems bizarre that they're related, but they weren't. I feared traveling back then because I never knew what bed I was going to be sleeping in. Backpackers for me, scared the bejeebus out of me because of the sheer number of people that shared a room and that you had no control necessarily over your safety in the room you were sleeping in, all these kind of things. And so, of course, I tackled that head first. And I traveled the world for, I headed off for 3 years, but ended up coming home after a year when my mother and father split. So, there's so many things that when we look back, and I know Thelma's just said it's such an amazing perspective, but it's not it is about perspective. I was going to say it's not about that. It is about perspective, but it starts with owning your story. And I had the beautiful pleasure on the weekend, and the reason that I was on the Gold Coast was actually attending a book launch of a friend of mine, and some of you may know him, Peter Williams Medium. He's located on the Gold Coast, and he's just written his first and launched his first book, with his second one hopefully coming out not too soon away. And as Pete was standing up and he was presenting his book to the room, and it was a 3.5-year culmination of creating this book. He turned around and he said the same, almost the exact words I'm saying to you now. He said, there is so much power in each individual story because every single person's trauma is subjective. Every person who has been through something, there's somebody else out there who's been through it too. There's somebody else who might even be going through it right now, which is awful to think, but true. And so when we take ownership of our story, the very first thing that I find tends to happen is that people immediately want to use the power of their story to ensure that they can make change or be of service to other people so that it doesn't happen to them. And this gorgeous ripple flow-on effect happens from your ownership of your story. Not only does it happen for you from a healing perspective, and trust me, it is so powerful, the healing that begins to immediately happen, but also what happens is the people around you, such as you beautiful souls that are on here listening to me tell my story right now, you all take something from what I'm saying. There's something from what I've said. There's something you can relate to. There's a part of my story that you can empathize with, if not sympathize with at the very least. And you can take that little tidbit and apply it to your own life. And then when you do that, there's somebody else who's taking what you're saying and applying it to theirs. And you can see this amazing little ripple effect that's now occurring. And more than that, the bigger and bigger effect as more and more starts to happen. And you see these people wanting to become of service. You know, so many beautiful, beautiful souls. And there's some big ones that some people I can mention that you'd know names of, such as we can take the Morecambes, for example. You know, when Daniel Morecambe was taken or disappeared, and the world kind of stopped, and certainly Australia. And if you're from Queensland and southeast Queensland in particular, you'll know how devastating that was for the community at the time. But Denise and Bruce Morecambe, they could have just sat and wallowed in that grief like that. It's unimaginable. I mean, it was 10 years before they found out what happened to him. And he was also a twin. He had a twin brother. Can you imagine the connection and the grief of those? But what they did is they owned their story. Yes, it happened to them. Yes, it was absolutely unbearably awful. Doesn't take away any of that. Owning your story doesn't take away any of that. But what it did is it allowed them to stand up and say, this has happened to us, and how can we ensure it never, ever happens again? And they have been fundamental in creating some of the most amazing change, as again, that ripple effect as they move forward. There is now a program that is presented in every single school in Australia on children's safety to teach kids how to be safe. You know, back in my day, it was the old stranger danger, but God, we used to have yellow stickers on the letterboxes of safe houses we could go to. God, that was just a breeding ground for pedophilia, if you think about it. But, so now they've got this, kids are taught from a very young age about safety. They were talking at one stage about a universal sign of danger. We have it for drowning, when you're in the water and you're drowning, the universal sign of that I'm in danger, I need help, is to place your hand straight up. Well, they were talking about, is there a sign that we can use for like an international signal of danger for children? And I know that's gone through the Senate in Australia a couple of times for discussion. There's an example of two people who owned their story, who didn't sit still. They took their story, they processed it. The grief and the tragedy that they went through is off this charts, but they actually then made change. They moved forward and ended up being of service to the community as a part of owning their story. And this is the ripple effect that I see happen all the time when people do this. Rosie Batty would be another amazing example, a woman who witnessed her own son murdered in front of her by her domestic abusive partner, the father of that child, and done to hurt her. And she takes that and becomes an ambassador and the voice for domestic violence to ensure that no other woman ever has to witness that. Can you imagine the strength it took her? And in that moment when she finally sat back after grieving and going through everything she needed to go through, when she got through the emotions, the day she actually stood in the ownership of her story and then went, I'm going to do something about that. This story, who I am now, as a result of what I've witnessed in this trauma, and I can now use that to better my life, to progress my life, and to actually help others. And it is that is a very selfless thing to do. And people that, I'm just kind of emptying kind of some of the feedback that I might be getting from you guys there, to say, look, there's some people who are just selfish and they wouldn't do that. But people that are selfish haven't yet owned their story. Let's be real about it, because when you fully owned your story and you're fully standing in a place of powerful healing and transformation, then you are no longer selfish. You do step into a selfless role. In the spiritual industry, we call it awakening. I don't like putting labels and terms on stuff, as you know. For me, it's actually the most powerful step that can occur as part of it. I can see you guys all putting up comments, and I don't want to miss any of them, so I'm just going to have a little bit of a scroll back. Let me see who we've got. We've got a whole lot of you online tonight. Sorry I've missed saying hello to you all. So hello there, Leanne and Jade. It's lovely to see you. Jade said, I need to own my story and forgive myself for past mistakes. Jade, yes. Absolutely, yes. You don't need to forgive yourself. They're memories. That's a memory of your past mistake. Just be present now as the most amazing, perfect person you are, owning the fact that you are this amazing, perfect person now because of those mistakes. Those mistakes have made you who you are. So why would you need to be sorry for that? There are maybe people you can say sorry to, but don't be sorry for the person that you are now as a result of it, because that person would not exist in this present reality and in this present form if you had not been through everything you've been through. And that is a very hard pill to swallow. I know if you're not there yet, if some of you are listening to me right now going, yeah, no, sorry, Belinda, I completely disagree. That's okay. That's okay. But it starts with that acknowledgement. It starts with that ownership of your story. And I'd love, love, love for you guys to consider coming along. If you're, even if you're not from around here, if you want to get on a plane and come to the Gold Coast in February next year, February 22nd and the 23rd at SeaWorld Resort. So it's a beautiful place to come to. And I've got a 2-day conference that I'm running there called Soul Stories Conference, Own Your Story. There will be 10 presenters. I'm one of them, and I'll be delving a lot deeper into what I'm talking about. But those 10 presenters are sharing the moment they owned their story. They'll share their trauma, and certainly just to give reference to what they're talking about, but it's not about the trauma, it's about the ownership of the story. And they'll share that moment they stepped into their power and that ownership and the techniques that they used to own their story and move forward. Especially if you've got somebody in your life that you know needs to be at this conference. Consider, especially with Christmas coming up, it's not that far away, let's be honest. Early bird tickets are on sale now until the end of October, so you can actually jump on and consider grabbing that as a ticket for them to go along to and start to really transform their lives. Use the code, I mentioned it earlier, if you missed it, there is a code you can use called SUPPORT. Just type that into the code box and it's going to give you $50 off your ticket if you're buying 2 or more tickets, and if you want to come along with a loved one so that you can be part of this incredible event. As some extra added amazing inclusions at that event, on Saturday night we are actually going into SeaWorld after hours to the Shark Bay Aquarium, where we're doing a 3-hour drinks and canapé dinner, which will be amazing. And we have a local storyteller from the Gold Coast Aboriginal tribe coming in to actually share their story of the people, the land and the water, which is going to be absolutely amazing. On Sunday, we have a live psychic medium doing a platform event at the end of the conference to wrap everything up and to show you that stories live on even on the other side. All right, energy's never, ever, ever destroyed. It's only ever transferred, remember. So that's something else to really look forward to. And if you wanted to spend a little bit of extra money, completely up to you. You don't have to, but there are, it is limited to exclusively to just 20 people, but we are selling 20 VIP tickets as well. And what that will give you is on Friday night before the conference, a chance to actually attend a special presenters and VIPs dinner, where you can meet all of the presenters in person and spend a lot of time with them prior to the conference, as well as some amazing goodie bag for each of the VIPs as well, with filled with all sorts of goodies from all of our presenters. So keep an eye out. If you aren't connected with me yet, please connect with me. There's a million places you can do that. I do run my own Facebook page called Facebook group, my apologies, called the Souls Collective. So you can search for that and find it and add yourself in there tonight. You've got my Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher Facebook page. So you can jump on there, hit like, follow that anytime you want to. Of course, you can always just come and personally friend me. So find me, Belinda Hayes, on Facebook. I've actually got a photo at the moment of this screen, okay? So it's easy to find me. And I'd love to connect with you more by just, sharing in each other's daily lives, because what can be more authentic than that, right? And of course, Soul Events is my company that's running this incredible conference as well. So if you can find that on Facebook, you can find the website. I've put the link up for you as well. In actual fact, I've just, as we were chatting, pulled up the itinerary, and I'm going to put that in here, and you guys can have a little look as to what the itinerary looks like for that event, if that interests you as well. So I haven't mentioned it yet, but I know that there's a lot of you on here that have incredible stories. In actual fact, no, scrap that. Every single one of you on here have incredible stories. okay? Because every single one of you have a story that can inspire somebody. And if we can make change to one person's life, that's, for me, that's it. My job on this world's complete. You know, if I can make change to two, if I can make change to 2,000, 200,000, well, now, you know, that's a whole nother level, and that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing to happen. But for me, it's just about that one. And every client I work with, it's just about that one. You know, I'm working with them. And I do that in so many different ways. Obviously, I run courses and workshops on the information that I have shared in some previous lives with you in obviously a much greater detail, because they are day workshops rather than an hour. I do personal one-on-one healings here in Brisbane, if that's where I'm located, over in the Redlands. I also I have a master's of business, and I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. So for any of you that might be considering starting your own business, or you're currently doing your own business and you just want to take it to the next level, jump on and have a look at what I'm offering at the moment. I've got an amazing online course starting in October that runs for 8 weeks, where I do the 6 P's of business and marketing. And you know, from everything I do is to actually do that from a spiritual sense. Okay, so you know, when you want to, we talk about manifesting. In actual fact, I did an entire live on it a couple of weeks ago. We talk about manifesting in our lives, and so many of us do that personally. We do that in our personal lives, but we forget we can do that in business as well. Okay, so but we just have to do a spiritual, we have to check in spiritually with our business. Check in and make sure that all the thoughts we're putting out, remember the power of thought, that the thoughts we're putting out into our business are actually positive ones as well at all times. I know it can be hard because our businesses are often tied up with our finances, and money is one of the biggest stresses that honestly in this day and age possibly exists. So, but remember, all the things that you do in your personal life to better yourself can be done to better your business as well. So if you're interested in working with me from that perspective, that's a way that we can connect as well. So you can check that out. That event's up on my Facebook page or even on my website, belindahayes.com.au as well, and you can see what that's all about and how that all works. So but the Soul Stories Conference is the one that I really wanted to talk to you guys about today, which I have, and hopefully, you know, like I said, the story that I've shared, I don't want any of you guys to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. You know, everything that I've been through in my life has served its purpose, and it's led me to be right here now talking to you live as I am. About my own story, and you know, I know for a fact, because it happens every week, 1 or 2 of you will message me after this and just say thank you for sharing that meant a lot to me, or I really needed to hear that specifically tonight. And so that's the reason I do what I do. That's the reason I've been through what I've been through, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here right now. You know, I'm not too sure, I don't think I've shared this story with you, but the day that when I was 33 and it all got too much for me and I attempted to take my own life, my children were home. My youngest was 3 and my daughter was 5 at the time. And when she found me and she couldn't get me to wake up, she grabbed my phone, because I've always taught my kids how to ring 000 if they ever need to ring for help. And she's pressed 0 on my phone, and it's pre-populated up a phone number, which happened to be her dad's number, because it was the most commonly rung number on my phone at the time, because we had shared care of the kids. And she rings Dad and she says, Dad, I can't get Mum to wake up. And so he says, I'm coming right now, I'm on my way over. And what actually happened is, in that moment, she ran to her room, and she had been gifted a rose quartz crystal on her first birthday by her godmother, and it had been sitting in her room ever since she was born. And I vaguely remember, I have a memory of her running over and putting the crystal into my hand and saying to me, it's okay, Mummy, this is love. You told me it will love you. And I remember sitting there at the time, or laying there at the time, and you know, by then my ex-husband had come and he'd found me and gotten me help, and I was on my way to get that help. And I was still holding this crystal, and it was pulsing up my arm. The energy that was flowing up my arm from this crystal was like nothing else I had ever felt before. And as I lay there in the lowest pits of despair that I'd ever been in my life, you know, on the brink of whether I was going to survive or be alive at the end of this or not, I had this overwhelming feeling of love. I'd been searching for love my whole life. I'd been searching and searching in all the wrong places, let's be honest. And what I realized in that moment, that it was actually always here. The love that I was feeling was all around me. And I had this connection in that moment to every person I'd ever met and every person I was yet to meet in my life, including every single one of you that are on here now that I've connected with, all at once as one person sending me love. And I realized and I knew in that moment that I was going to be perfectly okay. And it was bizarre thinking back to that moment now, because it wasn't instant. It's not like you just go, I'm going to be okay, and you open your eyes and everything's okay. But I just knew it was all going to be okay. It would all work out. And that was the first step for me. That was the moment that I had to call up and go, I own that I've done this. I own my story. I own where I am. And this can't happen anymore. This is it. This is it. I'm a mum, first and foremost, always. And I owe it to my children, but I owe it to me more. What am I doing? I'm holding this beautiful crystal, and I have all these amazing support people around me. And I realized in that moment that what a waste it would be for me not to be here. What a waste. You know, there's so much I've yet to do and so much I can yet give. And I went on that journey from that moment on. I call it my healing journey, because I don't think once you start, you ever stop that journey. It's constantly continuing, and it should be. But I went on that journey to be able to process those traumas, you know, my story of numbers, so that when I thought about them or talked about them, I can talk about them in third person. I can talk about them because they happened to somebody else, because me right now is not that little 10-year-old girl or that 16-year-old girl or even that 24-year-old girl that lost her first baby. You know, that's not me, because this me now is way better. This me now is a culmination of all of that, with a huge awakening understanding of why and how that was all meant to happen to me. And so that ownership of that story is the most powerful tool I can offer to any one of you to be able to do the same in your lives. So if you wish to join us at that Soul Stories conference and come along and be a delegate at that conference, then we have been sponsored by Melius the Story Collector and her hashtag Courage1000 project. She is collecting 1,000 stories from people all around Australia and the world, but in particular Australia, of stories of courage. And of course, you can imagine how amazing those stories are when she starts to collect them. And so anybody who attends the conference and is willing to stand up at the end of the conference and own their story, then Melly wants to share yours. She wants to take your story, she wants to record it, she wants to take a video of it, and she wants to put it in a book. Okay, so that is something we're offering to every single one of our delegates who attend. It's not mandatory, it's completely voluntary. Okay, but we want to get you by the end of that weekend, by the 23rd of February, to be owning your story, to be standing in your absolute power and say, yes, I will contribute to the Courage 1000 project. So pretty amazing, and something that I want to offer to you guys if you're ready. So Megan, if you're on here still listening, then I would love to see you at that conference, standing up going, I own my story, because I am awesome, I am amazing, I am beautiful, I am empowered, I am inspired, and I have a lot more that I can give the world. So guys, I'm finishing up a little bit early today. As you know, I have just got back from the Gold Coast. Well, for those of you that follow me will have seen all my amazing couple of days that I've had on the Gold Coast. And I need to get some sleep, to be completely honest with you. So thank you so much for just holding space for me tonight so I could share that all with you. I am completely thrilled to see how many of you are on here. So I'm having a little bit of a flick back through. Jade was on, and so was Thelma. Christine, how are you, darling? And Jody, perfection is imperfection. That's my favorite saying I learned from my little sister, found that to be true. So I'm going to say that again. Perfection is imperfection. And it's so true. Thank you, Jody. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's going to become one of my new favorite sayings. You watch a future live, I guarantee I use it. Shani's on, and so is Cherie. How are you? Emma joined us, and Moira saying, you look so happy now you are healed. Thank you, Moira. It is a process. I say it's a healing journey, but I have never been happier than now. I have never been happier because I live every single day now, every single day in my present. I do not suffer my past anymore, and I do not suffer the future. One, worry causes stress, which in turn, one ages us and also causes disease in the body. But it also is just my imagination, because I can't worry about something that hasn't happened yet. If it literally hasn't happened yet, I don't know what that reality is going to be. And if you've watched my previous live about manifestation, you know that I can access the quantum field anytime I want and choose my reality. I can do that. I know. Science has told me. Science is proving that you can even do that. My thoughts are that powerful. So why am I going to worry about a future if I can just make the future what I want it to be anyway? Okay, this is how I live, guys, and you can too, honest to goodness. And that happiness, I have a tagline, for want of a better term, for my business, and that is that my purpose and my mission is to enrich your lives with your own sense of happiness. And, the only person who can do that is you. But I can certainly assist you in the journey along the way. So thank you. Thelma, Jodie's on there with the beautiful Bodhi. So I'll have to tell that story one day to you all as well. What gorgeous, gorgeous people. And Patricia, thank you very much. Thelma's saying, I had 2 armed robberies and a break-in while we were sleeping, and I struggled for many years not knowing how to heal. So Thelma, I hope, just here, as I said to you, sharing my story, I knew there'd be somebody on here. I could feel it, to call it intuition, that somebody on here would understand completely where I'm coming from. Okay, but I hope something that I have shared with you tonight has made you understand the process of owning that story. Yes, that happened to you. Yes, it was okay to emotionally respond to it. We're emotional beings, you're allowed to. Okay, but stand in it and go, it's made me who I am. That anxiety led to this, and that fear has made me a stronger person. But don't hold on to the fear, let that go. That's the healing journey part. So Patricia's saying, you're so powerful. Thank you, Patricia. I am just a girl who's been owning her story for the last 4 years now, and it's made me who I am. So thank you. Thelma, I'm scrolling through. I don't want to miss any of you guys. You guys are all awesome tonight. So Patricia said, my story has made me inspirational to others. I'm grateful for my story, the learning and the teachings. Oh my God, what a beautiful, beautiful saying. I'm going to say that again because I think I said it a bit too quickly for everybody. My story has made me inspirational to others. I am grateful for my story, the learnings and the teachings. Could not have said it better myself, Patricia. Thank you so much for those words. They need to be printed and put on the top, wherever it is that you see it every morning. If it's on your mirror, if it's on your coffee machine, if it's on your fridge, whatever it might be, on the, dashboard of your car, so that when you wake up in the morning, every morning, you can read those words because they are beautiful and powerful. So thank you. Shelley was on live saying, great to see you. You too. And stated, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, is it Ginia or Guinea? Mel was on as well. You guys, I've put up those links to the conference, so check those all out. Jenny's saying that's her aim, which, Jenny Baldock, girl, we need to talk because I think I need you to be presenting live on stage too with everything you've got going on. So PM me because I'd love to chat more. Shani's sitting here. I call the events that have happened in my life my blueprint. I love the person I am today because of the healing. What a gorgeous outlook. Absolutely beautiful outlook. I love that concept of a blueprint. They're the plans. How else were you meant to, when you're designing a building, to create that building, it has to, you have to have the foundation and then this and this and this. And so if you just think of your life as that, yes, that is, you are the building of who you are because of that blueprint. Another awesome way. Thank you for sharing all this. An awesome, awesome way to put it. So Chelsea says, how do you begin to understand your own story? I'd like to delve more into this and know more. I definitely need more healing. So that comes, Chelsea, it's a great question. Knowing how to understand your own story comes as part of that healing process. Okay, so for example, when you get to a place where you can quieten down, and I would probably recommend to you to go and watch my first live I ever did, where I talked about going into your inner stillness and really pausing, because what we do when we go into our inner stillness is just break away from emotion. Okay, we shut our mind up, so it's not putting us in protection mode all the time, that fight and flight response. And when we can shut our mind up long enough, then we can actually start to really delve into what it is that's underneath everything that we are thinking or feeling. Feeling would be the way that you need to lean towards there, and then start to be able to understand that. I used to get, and you see this with these young kids, they get so angry on the road. And they've only been driving for 6 months. Some of them, they've got green P plates, they haven't even had their license for a year, and they're so angry already on the road. Whereas I guess I'm in this place now that when somebody road rages at me, I can just kind of look at them and just send them love and go, you know what, your base chakra is really unaligned at the moment, and I send love to that. I send love to whatever you're going through, because we can be standing next to somebody completely broken and not even know it. And I think it's so important that we all understand and respect that everybody's going through something. Everybody's going through something. And so sending love to situations instead, even your own. Sending love to my grandfather. Trust me, it took a long time to get there, but sending love to him and sending love to that situation. There's no such thing as time. I won't go into that in this feed, but there's no such thing as time. So in sending love to that 10-year-old girl, I'm sending it to myself right now. All right. And so that's how we can begin to start to understand our story. Obviously, we can go in a bit deeper with that, but that's a good place to start for you. Okay. So thank you, Thelma, for your beautiful words. Get back on them so I can click on this. Oh, it doesn't want to scroll anymore. Oh, there we go. Kylie Thomas, thank you, Belinda. Really needed to hear this tonight. I'm glad I could be of service. That's what I do. So Angela is saying love, 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 and Helen's on as well. So Shani's just written there, finally, before we end, you've just brought a tear to my eyes, hun. My brother's saying is, I am my own weakness. In this alone lies my ultimate strength. Wow, that's beautiful, Shani. Absolutely beautiful. I am my own weakness. In this alone lies my ultimate strength. That is exceptionally powerful. Thank you for sharing those words. Your brother certainly knew what he was talking about when he used to say that. So I really hope tonight has given you guys all something to think about. Okay. And take the time to jump on the Soul Stories Conference Own Your Story link that I've posted in the description and in the first comment of this live. Check it all out, because I would really, really love to see each and every one of you there standing up on Sunday afternoon, owning your story for the Courage 1000 Project, our main sponsor. So guys, I'm Belinda Hayes, the spiritual teacher. I'll be back on next Wednesday night, 8:30 to 9:30, as I say, same bat time, same bat channel. And looking forward to catching up and connecting with all of you wonderful souls again next week. Till then, take care. Love ya.